I was going to show you the snow at my house if you want to see it. It's really pretty. I don't know if you can
Oh
tell
yeah,
or not.
yep,
It's really pretty.
yeah. It's beautiful here. It's just kind of swirling.
Yeah.
It's uh, it's about light out here. Can't hardly see.
Yeah.
I'm looking out that way. I can see it over the water that way. It's beautiful. It's gonna be a mess though.
Yeah.
I'm already figuring I better be on the shovel this afternoon
Yeah.
before it freezes up hard
Yeah.
because
Be
it
careful.
it will be yeah. Men of a certain age, was it heart attacks in this kind of weather, getting out shoveling snow?
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
No, I'd rather not. I'd rather not. But it is pretty, but I can see what a mess it's going to be.
Yeah. I haven't seen anybody go down our road. So I can see the road is covered, but I can't see
Yeah, the road's
if
covered
it's
here.
easy to travel down or not. I don't know. We
Yeah,
don't get a whole lot of traffic down here, so I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm down at the end near the water, and then obviously nobody's going to the the marina, so I don't know. I haven't seen anybody come by, but it's sticking to everything. But we don't, knock wood. Our community, we have underground utilities, and so
Hmm.
I can't tell if it's sticking to power lines or not. We don't have any, but we're on the trunk line that goes down to the jetty that pulls water out of Lake Norman for the city of Charlotte. So we normally keep power. Uh,
Yeah.
that's that's not a guarantee, but I'd say that this is sticking to power lines. It looks
Yeah.
like it would. It's sticking to trees.
It does look like it.
That won't be good. Okay. So let me share my screen again. I see it's time to get started back. I went ahead and uploaded this the first session video right here. I'll try to do that after every session in case somebody gets knocked off or um, we'll have our we'll have our recordings. All right, session two. I'll stop my share. Make sure I've let everybody in. There comes another one. So the question is, I have given an overview of the current context of schools. The question is, how did we get here? And that will be the point of the second session today is how did we get here? We got here through law and policy. That's what this course is about. We started this morning with how did we get, the biggest problem we're having right now is we're losing our veteran employees. Well, look at the law and policy. I showed you the law, which came from a policy on freezing salaries for 10 years in the middle of somebody's year in career with the thought process, well, they've got 15 years in, they won't quit now. They're halfway to retirement, they won't quit. Well, how's that working out for you? Law of unintended consequences. We'll shift more money to the beginners, and because we can't get them to come and colleges of ed aren't cranking out nearly as many people. We'll do residency where they don't have to have that way, and we'll pay them more, and we'll get them. But where we're going to get the money, but we'll take it from the ones that they won't leave. They've been here too long. How's that working out? And now, for the first time in our history, we've got a crisis of we're losing our best employees. We're not just losing our young anymore, which are, they're just fodder for the cannon. We grind them up. We've always eaten them up. 30 years ago, 35, when I did my dissertation, we were losing 80% of them. That's not changed. Problem is now, because of the law and policy, we're losing our good employees. And we don't know why. Well, I can tell you why. Law and policy. You made a decision to freeze their salaries, to reduce their insurance benefits, to reduce their retirement benefits. With thinking, well, they'll stay anyway. They got 15 years in. They're too invested. They won't leave now. Yes, they will. So how did we get in this mess? Well, it goes back to law. So let's do a little history deep dive this morning that shows us how we got to where we are in public schools now. So let me share my screen and we'll look at the history of modern education starting in 1954. Modern education starts in 1954 with the Brown versus Board of Education decision. What did Brown say? It reversed Plessy versus Ferguson from 1896. Plessy versus Ferguson said separate but equal is okay. What did Brown say? Anybody want to unmute and tell me what Brown said in 1954?
That was the year I was born. And it said, oh, this is Nancy. It said that separate but unequal schools
Yeah,
was not legal.
that is correct. That's exactly right, Nancy. Separate schools were inherently unequal, and that we had to make all deliberate haste to integrate schools. That's what Brown said. And we did exactly nothing for the next 11 years. Not a thing. Until 1965, Civil Rights Act. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger so y'all can see that. There we go. So nothing happened. You see, though, you said, Dale, you said this happened in 1954, but then the next thing you've got is 1965. What happened during those 11 years? Nothing. Until the Civil Rights Act of 65 came along and said, you will integrate schools starting in 1966. I was in school in 1966. I remember it well, like it was yesterday. All of a sudden, buses arose with kids that didn't look like me, pulled up. So we started in 1966, which created a wave of school consolidation. So let's do some simple math here. You've got a black school and you got a white school. They both got 300 kids. If you're going to integrate those schools, you need a school that holds 600 kids, right? Couldn't just send one to the other. They didn't have room for them. So we had to start consolidating schools to try to integrate. Well, two issues with that. Where are we going to get, where we're going to have to build schools, A, and B, where are we going to get the money? All right. So, because we had people in the General Assembly in North and South Carolina who did not believe in integration, they immediately said, we're no longer going to fund the building of schools. The state's getting out of the school building business. We're going to put capital. Now is going to be a local school district, what's called an LEA, local education agency, your county school. They're going to be responsible to build buildings, knowing that that would do what? Slow down the integration of schools. That the local people would have to vote to tax themselves through their county commissioners in order to build and upkeep schools. That'll stop this. This will change in just a few minutes. We'll just wait them out. Now, the people in North Carolina who ran the state financially were builders. Spangler out of Charlotte, Powell out of Raleigh. And they said, wait a minute. We're making billions with a B back when money was real money, building schools. States funding it. We're not going to quit building schools. So what did North Carolina do? They started building a community college on every corner. That's why we have 140 plus community college facilities in North Carolina in a state that needs about 25. That's the reason why we overbuilt community colleges. And now they're struggling because they don't have enrollment. We kept building them because the people who ran the state were going to keep on building schools. They just weren't going to, they weren't going to build them for public schools so that we could make it easier to integrate. So there were other acts passed at the same time, the Elementary and Secondary Act of 65, which gave us all of our titles, which can put federal money in schools. Tinker versus Des Moines in 69, due process rights. We had to actually give kids and parents due process, not only discipline, but also money and facilities and opportunities and access. All of that came when students and parents got due process. Well, we struggled along for 5 years because the local people were not willing to tax themselves to build new schools, larger schools where we could put the 300 from this school and the 300 together in a 600 school. That's when the Swan decision with Charlotte national case, uh, Julius Chambers argued the case before the Supreme Court in the Swan case. And that's when busing, they said, all right, if you won't build a school, then you're going to have to bus 150 for these kids and 150 and integrate both schools through busing. That's where the Swan decision came. And it was the law of the land for 30 years. So Swan forced busing integration. If you weren't going to build schools where you could integrate, again, all the money was going to community colleges. The locals, the intent was to slow down integration. The locals would not tax themselves. It was now up to the county commissioners. Remember, school boards are unempowered. They can't levy taxes to build anything. And if you want to let a bond to build that's basically borrowing from the state. The county commissioners have to approve that. They have to have a vote, and the county commissioners have to approve that item to go on the ballot. To build a school, even you say, well, we'll just use bonds. Well, but the county commissioners have to approve the bonds. Again, it goes back to the county commissioners. They control the budget. They control whether or not you get a bond. They control everything since 1966 when the state exited capital funding. And so if the county commissioners weren't willing to tax themselves and build schools so that you could integrate, the Swan decision said, all right, you got to bus the kids then. So that was the law of the land. We had a lot of challenges. Uh, Federal funding came along in 74 for special ed. Full disclosure, I didn't go to school with EC kids. I'm too old. They were not in school when I went. Said that you got to let these kids go to school as well, and the feds will pay for it. Um, there were several court cases. The bigots were still hard at work fighting against integration. Again, the Robinson lawsuit upheld the acts from 65, which was federal money coming in to help at-risk kids of different kind, special ed kids, those. Um, Along the way, North Carolina passed the basic education plan in 84 that said every kid gets a basic education. Trying to look out for kids. And some smart guy in the back stood up and said, what is a basic education? So for 5 years, North Carolina wrote a standard course of study, big white thick notebook. Some of you might be old enough to remember them. We had a big white thick curriculum notebook for every course and every grade in North Carolina. South Carolina had the same thing. And so it took 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, people said, well, here's what a basic education is. And the same smart guy in the back stood up and said, or gal in the back stood up and said, how do we know they're getting it? That's when accountability started in state testing. Along the way, we had different kind of programs like career development program that tried to give teachers status and tried to differentiate. That came and went. I was principal in 2 districts that had that. But the whole idea was to improve education, get more money, get more resources to kids in an economic climate where the people who were in charge at the local level did not want that. But again, that power given to county commissioners in 1966, when the state got out of capital funding, that was the law and policy that got us where we are now, where we have to go hat in hand to the county commissioners. And if they give us the money, fine. If they don't, fine. They have to tax themselves locally. Now, At the state and local level, the Rutherford County example on Facebook, the county gave $20 million and the state gave $100 million. That money comes directly from school budget. You got to understand when we do these economic incentives to try to get jobs, we're taking it straight from education. That's where it's coming from. Because the way that, and when we gave Facebook's no tax in perpetuity, again, how do we get money for schools? Through property tax and business tax. That's where it comes from. How do we fund the bond if we want to build a school or get more money from school? Comes from sales tax. And so if county commissioners aren't willing to do that, you don't get it. And so that's how we got where we are. Accountability, the report card. And so a group of low wealth counties said, this is not working for us. Our county's not willing to tax itself. The state's not giving us money, not giving us enough money for us to be competitive in educating our children. So that's when the Leandro case came. Now, full disclosure, I was on the legal team for the plaintiffs and during Leandro. And so sued the state to try to change the funding formula. The funding formula being at that time, it's now eight. Back then it was 7,000 per pupil. And what we wanted was for the state to do a district power equalizing with a recapture provision rather than a flat grant. So let me stop my share and try to explain that. And I'll go back to a PowerPoint that I have. When the $8,000 comes to your district, it comes in for to educate a kid. That's all that comes. And if you're not willing at the local level to put any money with that, that's all you get to educate a child. Well, low wealth districts that were giving their money to businesses or doing economic incentives or refusing to tax itself, that's all that they got. During that time, places like Wake and Charlotte were spending, at that time, the state was giving $7,000. Districts like Hope, that's all they had was 7,000. And their argument was Charlotte and Wake are adding another 4,000 per pupil, and they're spending 11,000, and we're getting seven to educate our kids. And so what they wanted was is the state to give 2,000 less to them and 2,000 more to the poorer schools so that they both had nine. And that's what the Leandro case was to try to change the funding formula. Now, be careful when you understand Leandro. The plaintiffs lost. They did not win. The funding formula was not changed. The state said, we're not changing the formula and you can't move money. The money's got to follow the kid because he gets his basic education. So that means that you can't take, as a district, you can't take and give one school that has maybe a more difficult or more at-risk population more than another. You can't do that. So that was the finding. So, but they did say we're going to give more capital money. They didn't. And when the judge said 2 years ago that you're not doing that, they said you can't make us. It didn't say we had to. We're not giving you any money. They said, well, we'll start a lottery. And what have we found from the lottery? No money at all. There's no money coming to schools from lottery, not a dime. And so that's how we got behind on our capital needs is the Leandro case said we're not changing the funding formula. The state's not building you any schools. That's up to you locally. And so locally, if you're not willing, there's a lot of racism in that we didn't want integrated schools. And so that's the history of where we are. So I'll go to Cherie's got her hand up.
Yeah, quick question. You just mentioned the statement of how they determined that, at-risk schools were not able to get any more than any other school. If someone wanted to really go into the policy part of like creating something to come against that, how would that work? Um,
Leandro case.
just
You have
it's
to file a lawsuit against the state.
mm,
That's exactly what Sherry just said. That's exactly what they said was we've got needs here. We've got
Mm-hmm.
harder kids. We've got at-risk kids. We got poor kids. We got EC kids. We got more needs. We need more money. And that's what you have to do is sue the state to make them give you money based on your population, not just the number.
Not just the
Who they
number.
are, not just the number of them. And the decision, going back to that, share my screen. Responsibility. North Carolina has that. Can't be transferred to the Board of Education. Again, no authority by the Board of Education. Um, the counties were Hoke, Robertson, Vance, Cumberland, and Halifax. State constitution does not require equal funding, and they affirm that. That at the end of the day, we give you the same, but if your local puts more, we're not obligated to give anybody else more, or they can't move it around. Does not require every students to receive the same educational opportunity. As long as you get a basic education, that's all that's required. All it requires is you get a basic ed. And somebody said, "Well, what's a basic ed?" And they said, "Whatever we give you." That's what that meant. All right. Amy's got a question.
Going back to your the 1974 federal funding for special education,
Right.
during that time frame, I'm kind of jumping to the conclusion in my head that if the schools are going to get federal funding for special education, that money was then removed from state hospitals so that and there to where
That's when they collapse. That would be
that's
correct.
when medication and then with the real allocation of funds, lower staff quality, and
Yep.
therefore less resources because then our schools didn't really create policies for those students, kind of just manage those
That is
students.
correct.
Okay.
A lot of far reaching. I mean, thank you for making that point. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it here today.
Hmm.
I'm just doing big picture. There was a lot of far reaching ramifications here of what happened. Basically, instead of saying, all right, the feds are going to come in and help us, and this is the point that Amy is making, the state said, we don't have to do that anymore. Somebody else is going to do that. No, that was never the intent. The federal money was never intended to replace the state or local money. It was supposed to be in addition to, but that's not how states interpret it. Oh, somebody else is paying the bill now. We don't have to. And so, as I said earlier today, that federal money came to the state. They were supposed to put it with their money and send it on. They didn't do that. When it came, they just sent that money on. They quit putting their own money with it. And somebody said, well, these kids aren't getting a basic education then. I mean, aren't getting whatever we give you is a basic education. You don't have well, they get more over here. Well, you have no right to that. You only have the right to the bare minimum. That's all you have a right to. It's right here on the screen. I'm not making this up. You say, well, how could these people be this? Well, that you see it. A lot of it had to do with racism and classism. And we fought integration tooth and nail, marched in the street to keep from, denying people access. That's how it happened. We got out of school funding to stop integration and started building community colleges that we didn't need and still don't need. Why do you think we're doing early colleges now? So that the school district and the college can count them and get funding for them. We don't care that we're producing kids at 20 years old that you know don't know anything and can't get into the college into the workforce. We don't care. We're just double counting so that we continue to get money. James, you got your hand up.
Yes, sir. I was thinking about the Leandro case, as in, did we ever look at any of the other states and see how they distributed money, or
36 states at the time of the Leandro lawsuit, 36 other states did district power equalizing, where they gave more to the poorer people.
Mm.
36 states. Now, here's the bad news, James. I have to be careful that my politics don't get me all upset today. During the last 10 years, and we know of the MAGA phenomenon, the last 10 years, 11 years, we've seen that number of states that tried to look out for at-risk populations doing district power equalizing. We've seen 9 of them go back to flat grant funding. So now only 27 states do the right thing. That number's going the wrong way. In the mid 90s, we thought that eventually all 50 states would be district power equalizing. Not only did that not happen, we've now regressed. 9 states have gone back to flat funding. The red states out in the Midwest have gone back to flat funding.
What's the closest southern state that does that kind of distribution of?
Virginia,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Well, but again, Virginia's a blue state. It might be in the South, but it's a blue state. And now that, the red states are all going flat grant funding where they can stop looking out for at-risk populations. Cherie's got a question.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be quiet after this. But I had
You're
a
fine. I
I
like
had a
questions.
question in reference going back to the funding part you talked about with the policies. So now that you're explaining this out loud, I'm going back to those schools that get that restart funding
Right.
and those type of fundings as serving as a, I call it buffer money,
Yeah.
only because I'm in an at-risk school. And
Hmm.
so that money provides us the extraness of what we need to serve our students. And so now that we're getting into these funding issues, is that now we're going backwards. I feel like we're going backwards
We are going backwards.
because all the money that we're trying to get through grant next time is like in limbo. So now we're
Yeah,
getting ready to
because
go
it's
all the
federal.
way
All
backwards.
that was not state money to begin with. It might have been administered through the state.
Mm.
Remember, federal money does not come to you directly from the federal government. It comes to the state and they manage and disperse it. Nancy's actually in that world. I mean, that's what she does in Wake County. Um, while remembering, we have 6 federal programs that are funded by the feds. We have career and technical education, exceptional children, EC 504, gifted programs, career and technical, and Title I. All those are funded from the federal government through that grant system that Cherie was just talking about.
You went
All
too
that
fast. Go
stuff's
back
in
again.
limbo.
You went too fast. Go back again with those you just listed.
Okay, let me do this. Let me share my screen. Right there. That's what the feds fund right there.
Dr. Lamb, am I mistaken? Are they trying to get rid of the federal department that handles the
Absolutely.
exceptional
That is
funds?
correct. That is correct. We're, the feds are trying to get out of the school business. And these are the people, again, this is who the federal government funds through the grant program. But again, the state administers these, but the money comes from the feds. EC, as I said, EC 504, Title I, ESL, Gifted, and CTE. Right there they are. That's who the federal government funds. But the state has oversight of those. Nancy's in that world. Nancy, help us out here.
Yes, and what's so frightening about this, and I see it reverting back to being a child who grew up in the 60s, kindergarten through 12th grade, 60s, early 70s. I see us going backwards, and my fear and the fear of my colleagues, and I will speak to the exceptional children and 504 and intervention teams and whatnot in those red states, because what they want to do, as you were saying, Dr. Lamb, is have the oversight done at the state level, like getting the feds out of the game.
Yep.
We lose the Office of Civil Rights, which assures that these programs are being implemented with fidelity.
Hmm.
And when that oversight leaves the federal level, God help us, in those back rural towns,
Yep.
that, for example, under the exceptional children, under IDEA, we have a responsibility as an LEA, as a district, under Child Find, to assure that all
Right.
children are located and receive programs as early in Michigan. It was birth to starting preschool, and so when that leaves the feds oversight, and we find it coming down to the state level, I'm fearful of that. And then the disproportionality of children who are linguistically diverse, looking to speaking to ESL, and children with disabilities being pushed out,
Yeah.
and that's already happening there. Who's going to have an oversight of that to cite LEAs that you're out of compliance? You have a
Hmm.
disproportionate number of children. So what this present administrative climate wants to do is go back to that state level, and give them the oversight and the purse strings, as if I'm not mistaken, also the purse strings, right, Dr.
Yes.
Lamb? And so
Yes.
I'm telling you, that opens the door to a lot of corruption.
Well,
Because
remembering
my
our
saying is,
history,
knowing
we
our
had to
history,
send federal troops into these southern states to make them integrate schools.
and it makes
And
you
if we
wonder,
go back in these red states to where they're allowed, there's no federal
do it.
oversight, they're not going to do it. They're
So
not
who's
going to
checking the
offer English as a
checker?
second language because those kids are more than likely children of immigrants.
And who's checking the checker? So there's not going to be anybody checking the checker.
No, no, and it's not going to happen. We're going to let it go back to being third world again, in our society. But that's who we play. Now, to Nancy's point, let me pull up another PowerPoint right quick if I can find one. Okay, can't get it that way. I'll get it this way. Right here. Let me pull this one up. This is Josh Sane. Used to work with me. He's gone private. But anyway, he's an EC expert. Back to Nancy's point, these are all the things that you're required to do. Child fine being one of them, what she was talking about. But here are all the things that you have to do. Now, manifestation determination, where kids get their rights if they're up for discipline. All this stuff is reported to the Office of Civil Rights, by the way. And we're going to cover that in the afternoon session when we look at the disciplinary data manual. All those policies, when we look at that. We might get to that in this session, but what I'm talking about, all these things, that all these requirements, free and appropriate education, FAPE, child fine, least restrictive environment, all this, there's an oversight that schools and school districts are doing that. If the Department of Education is abolished, there will be no, and the Office of Civil Rights is abolished, there will be no oversight of all those things that kids are supposed to get. Everything that we've known in our careers. Again, I didn't go to school with EC kids, but my entire career, starting in the late 70s, this has been the law of the land. That's what we're talking about. School as we know it, with no federal oversight. Who's going to guarantee in a red state that any of that stuff happens? Who's going to guarantee that there's not going to be a disproportionality of minority kids, EC kids, or at-risk kids suspended from school? Who's going to guarantee that that doesn't happen? It's going to be up to basically the state and the local, and even that, if they want to do the right thing or not.
Here's the frightening part too, Dr. Lamb, when we talk about FAPE, a free and appropriate public education that every child in the United States is entitled to. What I am very, very concerned with at this juncture in the education arena is we're going to really go back to the over-identification of children who are linguistically diverse and children who are of color. And that pipeline to prison, I think it's going to increase
Well, of course it will.
as a result.
Some of the best
It's very
work.
frightening. It's very, very frightening. And it's a setup.
Yeah.
And it has to do, I think, also in the great divide that we're seeing right now in the classes economically, because you can't talk education without talking economics, right? And you just started out with that salary scale of teachers being frozen for 10 years. So they're hitting us at all levels. And therefore, we're already experiencing it, the great divide in the middle class. There is no more middle class. We're the working
No, there
poor.
is none.
And so all of this ties in together when you look at it. And if we look at Pablo Ferreira, who's was a progressive with pedagogy of the oppressed, all of this ties in what you're talking with today. So if I'm of that group that wants to demolish public education and I doing it for the purpose of my group's economic gain. Okay. And that's at the expense of your middle class teachers, middle class administrators. So they've already chopped at us over the last 30 years. Okay. They came for the auto workers in UAW back when in the 80s. So chop them out. And so then I'm going to do what Pablo Ferrer warned us about to not let happen in any culture or society. Don't let them keep your culture and society illiterate. Because if I can't think, I can't. My bullshit detector, excuse my French, my bullcrap detector can't go up because I'm half educated. Why am I half educated? Because you set it up that way for me to, Trump doesn't care about quality education. You all already see that. So it all ties together, the economics and the education. If I raise up a generation of people who can half mobilize themselves to question what I'm doing, and I can freeze your salaries or pay you less, not value your profession, the education profession has been under attack. And this is what we're getting. There's a reason for all of this.
Oh yeah.
There's There's
Well,
there's
the game plan was set right after the Civil War in the red states in the South. That's where the game plan was set. We'll marginalize these people. We won't let them go to school. And we'll make them, we will freeze them out economically. We won't educate them so they can't fight against us. I mean, our laws are intentionally obtuse and complicated so that only the educated can compete in the world and in society. So that's what we're headed back to. You got to understand your law and policy. You have to understand the history of where we've been. It wasn't always, you know, we didn't always have these rights and protections. And so because we didn't always have them, we have a large group in our society that says we need to take them away again. At the end of the day, and I always get in trouble at this point. People get angry with my politics. But at the end of the day, the argument here is not, I like this person or this group's economic pot. At the end of the day, this is about race and class. It always has been. And if you don't believe that's I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. I mean, when you understand and know the history and you see what's happening on a daily basis, it's hard to deny that this is just about race and class, economics. We want an underclass. There is no middle class. We're striving for an economy that has poor people that we can make do whatever we want, basically indentured servitude. I mean, we look at what's happened with unemployment benefits. We'll make people work. We'll take them, for what we want to pay. No, you won't. Uh, and part of that is we have all these people who came into our country who will work. We'll drive them out. We're going to make these people. We're going to control the economy by that part of that as well. And so we had all these rights, we had all these policies, these rules. We've the federal government helped make people behave themselves. And so now the federal government is, we've got politicians that are getting out of that. Again, going back to the Leandro, Wested came in and said that released their report in 2019 and said that they weren't keeping up with the capital that they were supposed to do either. I mean, and it continues on to where just a couple of years ago, um, they said you owe $2 billion. And the General Assembly said, you can't make us. And the federal government won't step in and make them do that. That's what we're talking about. They knew in the current environment that the federal government would not send troops to make them behave themselves. They would send troops to stop the people who were protesting the abuses. They would send federal troops to help the bad guys, not the good guys. And so that's how the General Assembly of North Carolina, although they owe about $2.3 billion in capital that they should be giving out, they're not going to. They know that there's no authority that can make them, or the authority that can make them don't want to, because they agree with them. So our federal government during the 50s and 60s that did the right thing is now doing the wrong thing, as we can see in cities like Minneapolis. That's where we are. We're responsible for all these things. And even our county commissioners, as I said, in Rutherford County, weren't willing. They gave the money to Facebook, weren't willing to fund schools, and then blamed people that, and then the height of hypocrisy, blame people that don't even exist. There was, a person at the county commissioner meeting with the school board that said, would you point out these people that took your money? There's not an elected Democrat in this county, woke or otherwise. Explain how they took the money. They're not in charge. They don't even have a seat at the table, much less of them. They don't even have a minority stake in this, much less the majority voting majority. There's not an elected one of them in this county. You're the people who gave the money to Facebook rather than the schools. That's why we had to close 2 schools. We didn't have the money to run. One of my doctoral students is principal in the very eastern part of the county. The schools that closed were in the west. They had to distribute kind of a bump down across the county. So the first day of school, without warning, 30 kids showed up with no teacher. That's what we're talking about. These decisions that people make, these policy, again, the school board might have sent them, but they sent them because the county commissioners gave the money and didn't give and would not give them any more money. They gave their money to Facebook. We created some jobs for a minute. You created some jobs for a minute, but then they went away. And now you've got Facebook sitting there not paying any taxes in perpetuity. They have no corporate tax, none in perpetuity. They got 12 jobs, minimum wage, 4 custodial, 4 maintenance, 4 security. That's what they got for $120 million. Those are the decisions that we're making along the way now. Picking back up with our legal cases that get us where we are now. Back to my screen share, back to my cases. All right. So we started state accountability. Leandro, no change in state funding formula, more money, more money to low wealth districts through capital, but it's pork barrel. That means that it's just basically stolen and wasted. There's no formula to distribute it. And they were supposed to give it out, but they've only given out just, as I said, a handful of it, that money generated by the lottery. Again, the judge said, Jones said that there were $2 billion behind in giving that money out. The lottery money's not even being given out. They did crazy things with it. Even when it's coming out, they're just giving crazy. It's so right up the road there, they built the NASCAR Institute. It's kind of to train NASCAR employees. Doesn't help the economy, doesn't have anybody. That's a private business. They built a cafeteria. What was it in Surrey County? Surrey or Stokes? They had a high school with 300 kids. They weren't smart enough to figure out how to do 2 lunch shifts. And so they needed the cafeteria so all 300 kids could eat at one time. It stayed open for a year and the state pulled the funding. They didn't have enough kids to have a school. They just wanted the contracts. And so probably 80% of that cafeteria building money was just stolen. But that's what we're talking about. There was no formula for that money. It was just pork barrel. We give it to whoever we wanted to, whenever we wanted to, and mostly whenever we wanted to. That meant we didn't give it. That's why when they tracked the money, they said, y'all are over $2 billion behind giving out that capital money generated by the lottery over the last nearly 30 years. You're $2 billion behind. You said that the lottery was there to generate capital funds for buildings and grounds that you could give to these low wealth places. That we weren't going to change the funding formula, but we were going to start a lottery so that it would generate capital's buildings and grounds. You can't pay salaries with it. That we were going to help these low wealth districts. They claimed that they didn't have money to build their schools. We started a lottery, called it the education lottery, but we didn't give it to them. And what we did was just stolen and wasted on ridiculous projects. Full disclosure, Gardner Webb got a $500,000 last year to finish up the little amphitheater that they were building on campus that sits empty all the time. Yeah. So what little money does come out, how does that help kids in K-12 that it went to help pay for an amphitheater at a private college? I, I'm kind of at a loss to explain that one. I'm not smart enough to do the math on that one. But the lottery money in general doesn't show up. That capital money, Not my opinion. Judge said 2 billion. Where is it? It's been generated. It never showed up at the schools. You owe them $2 billion, these low-wealth schools. We're not sending it. You don't have to. You can't make us. And the federal government's doing this. Well, what $2 billion? You know. And so as long as states can operate any way they want to, there will be no oversight. There will be no guarantees. There will be a time like when Nancy and I were in school, when EC kids didn't come, you weren't guaranteed anything. You had poor quality, um, at risk. There was no such thing. We were all at risk, I guess. That school did not, in great measure, schools did not serve society. We improved that. We got better at that. We wanted to fix that, and then now we're going the other way as hard as we can go. Cherie, you got your hand up.
Yes, sir. I said I wasn't going to say nothing, but one more question. So going back to the policy actors that we were talking about, and this could be a crazy question. So now that we've talked about all these issues and concerns, um, as a policy person or maker, if we were in that seat, what could be done in creating policies to help and assist locally? And I guess that's just me trying to connect it all to
Elections have consequences.
correct.
That's the only answer.
Got you.
People are not going to do the right thing because it's the right thing, and then will gaslight you and argue that it's not the right thing, and question you that this is not the right thing. Let's make America great again when we didn't do any of this stuff. But what we're doing, I mean, I was alive in the 50s and 60s. It wasn't no picnic. Folks, Happy Days is not real. That's a TV show. Mayberry, Andy Griffith, that's not real. That was a TV show. And the generation before me, like my parents, oh, they'll tell you. Now, obviously, I'm just an old grumbly white man, but my mother was an immigrant from Ireland. They were starving to death in the run up to World War II. People don't understand how bad it was in Europe right before World War II. They were literally starving to death. And the mills brought all the Irish people here to work. My mother came, Catholic, from Waterford, the east coast of Ireland. My mother said they became Baptists because they would have gotten killed if they were, the Ku Klux Klan was just as bad on Catholics as they were black people. So explain to her how making America, my mother passed away a few years ago. She was in her 90s. But explain to people that how that was such a great time in our history. Um, I mean, when was America great? That I mean, my own experience in the 1950s and 60s, it was awful. My parents' experience in the 30s and 40s, it was awful. 50s, it was awful. How, that's what we're striving to go back to again. It might have been good for rich people, the 1%. It might have been good for them, but that's what we're trying to go back to again. Is that where the rich get richer? I mean, Nancy mentioned unions. I mean, unions were there to build that mostly trade unions were there. That's what built the middle class in America. And what have we done in unions since the 80s and 90s? We've tried to drive out. We don't even allow unions in North Carolina. Teachers can't even unionize. Yeah. That's the unions are what created the middle class in America. They are gone. The middle class is gone with it. Understanding the only way that this is going to change is through the ballot box, is elections. But the good thing for the other side is the dumber people are, the more that they'll fall for. And so that's why more than any other thing, education is under attack. We don't want educated people. Just like after Reconstruction, we didn't want black folks to do well. We made it illegal for them to get educated. Why do you think that is? It's not incidental or accidental or coincidental. We know education is the key. We know that that is the truth. There's attack on, singularly, there's an attack on religion going on as well. You said, Dale, that sounds like, you're out in left field here. Um, the attack on religion is basically converting religion to more of a cult of personality kind of thing, where the leader is more important than the word. Um, we're seeing that where we're promoting the prosperity gospel people, the evangelists, the people, and they have become part and parcel of the administration. They're supporting that they kind of gotten together where when I say there's not an attack on these mega churches and that thing, but an attack on the word religion itself. Religion's about how you treat people. And there's an attack on that it's okay to marginalize these people. It's okay to make fun of them, call them names, do all that stuff. That's an attack on religion, not certain churches. Be careful what I'm saying here. That's all part of that. We have declassified, we've made teaching not even be a profession anymore. We've done all these things. We're under attack. Religion itself is under attack from the perspective of religion is supposed to guide how you live your life and how you treat others. Now, we don't want any of that. It's okay to discriminate against them people. It's okay to shoot them people. It's okay to hate them people. That's what I'm talking about. Religion's under attack because religion tells you how you ought to comport yourself, how you ought to live your life and treat others. That's what religion's about. That's under attack as well. We've made completely inappropriate behavior. Oh, that's just the norm now. Screaming, yelling, calling names, shooting people. That's okay. That's okay. How we treat the lesser of us, immigrants, how we treating them. That's what I'm talking about. That's our that's the fundamental foundation of this country. That's all under attack as well. Again, elections have consequences. People voted for this. People voted for this because deep down, while they might have said, well, I voted for this group because I like their economic policies or their foreign policy, that's just a lie. They voted because they liked the hatred, the bigotry. They liked that part of it. That's the part they liked. They didn't want to say it out loud, but that's the part that they liked. You can't overlook that part. Sandra?
So, with that being said, would you say that perhaps institutions such as Gardner Webb, being a private Christian institution, is under attack?
Yeah. Well, of course. We're it's not a direct attack. It's more of reason we're under attack is because we have devalued Christianity and religion, and so our enrollment is dropping like a stone on the undergraduate side because of our Christian heritage. I mean, that's not my opinion. Um, we're down to 1,250 undergraduates, and 600 of them are being paid to come as athletes. We only have 650 traditional undergraduates that aren't athletes on scholarship because we have devalued Christian life, religion in our society. And places like Gardner Webb are feeling the brunt of that, where kids are not looking, are not looking for a Christian education or to be held to Christian principles of behavior if you live on our campus. There ain't no smoking, no drinking. No drugging. No cohabiting. None of that stuff happens at a Christian place. I mean, I'm there every day. I can tell you, Gardner Webb's a pretty straight place. It's a real deal kind of place. There ain't no boys staying in girls' dorms or any of that stuff. We're not doing any of that cohabitation stuff. I've never smelled cigarette smoke on that campus in any bathroom or any kind of smoke of any kind. No drugs, no drinking, none. Um, we don't have chapel. We have dimensions. You go every week and you have certain codes of behavior, but that's been devalued in our society. And so you will know why enrollment's declining because people, we've devalued, Christianity. We've devalued religion.
So going forward, do you think that's going to impact the university and its graduates in a way that would impede their performance or their
Oh
success?
no. Oh no. The ones that come do well. That's not the issue. The issue is enrollment. The issue is recruitment. These kids and their families don't see the value of a Christian education. The ones that come get a great education, do well in life. The issue is getting them to come because we devalue that in our society. They don't see that as an option or don't think about it as an option because we've devalued it in our society. Now, when they come, they get, that they're in hot demand for graduate schools and jobs because that's the kind of people employers want. It's just, people don't,
Don't bet.
people don't want the medicine. They don't want what's good for them. Do we always want what's good? How many of you didn't eat that pie last night and exercise? We don't always do what's good for us. But if we did what was good for it, we would reap the benefit. There is a benefit to doing the right thing. But it doesn't look like the attractive option. It looks like it's hard rather than easy because our society has made the expectation that everything ought to be easy. You ought to be able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to. My freedom. Well, but sometimes that's not a good thing. James?
So with that issue, do you think the problem is going to be able to be solved through the administration or through the stakeholders? Uh,
The stakeholders are led by the administration. That's a good question. Stakeholders led by, you got to have voters.
right.
But you got to have people at the top in leadership who understand how all this works. We had a guy that ran for state legislature here from the northern part of Charlotte, excuse me, not North Mecklenburg, the northern part, the northern area of Charlotte, out around the university area. And he ran on a platform of he was going to make the state give more money to build schools in that area. Wait a minute now. You're running for the General Assembly, and you don't even know that the state don't build schools. That's what we're talking about. Our leadership, our people in leadership, and it's inherent incumbent upon us as school people that we have to educate the populace on how all this stuff works. The state doesn't build you any schools. They got out of capital funding 60 years ago this year. 60, 1966, the state of North Carolina exited capital funding. They don't build you schools. That's the local. If you're interested in getting more schools out in the university area, then you need to get on the county commission because they're the people that build schools, not the General Assembly. That law's not going to change. That's how that works. You need to understand. If you want to be a superintendent, the policy players are not you and your board. You might work for them and they might think they have authority, but they're 16-year-olds. They have to go to daddy and mama to get the money. That'd be the county commissioners. What happened in Winston-Salem? They overspent by 55 million. Again, reported in the media. That's not my opinion. $55 million they overspent. Did the county commissioners bail them out? No. Did the state bail them out? No. Did the feds bail them out? No. I don't know what they were thinking. We'll just keep on spending. Somebody will give me the money. No, they won't. How'd that work out for them? No. There's no district too big to fail. I mean, I don't know. That lady was from Florida. I don't know if she didn't understand how funding worked, and I don't know how in the world you overspent $55 million, but she did. But she did. And the county commission, led by the former superintendent of schools, who's now chair of the board, felt no compunction to help them in any way. The state didn't either. Federal government, we're not in local business. We turned it all over to you. You better know how things work. You better know the history of why we got to where we are. You can't claim, well, I've got these people that need this help. Well, we intentionally made it that way. We're not going to help you just because you got at-risk kids, EC kids, minority kids, immigrant kids. We're not going to help you. That's your fault. You didn't know the rules. Was it Snoop or Dre that said, if you don't know, you better ask somebody? If you don't know how it works, you better ask somebody. Because you can get yourself in a bind in a hurry, thinking that these people are here to help you and that they're going to look out for you, and that if you write a budget, they're going to give you the money. No, they're not. No, they're not. You better understand the government, and you better understand the history that we got here through racism, and we got here through bigotry. That's how we got here. And then when we had in the 90s, which was a much more liberal time than now, when we had a lawsuit, we still lost. That we're not going to do the right thing. We're going backwards. We're going the other way. And this notion that, oh, it would be a good thing if we closed the Department of Education without anybody oversighting. You can't depend on states to do the right thing. They won't. We know ours won't. They will not do the right thing. Now, whether you agree with them or not, you have to know the laws and policy, and you better follow them. Nobody can give you permission to break the law. You must know your law and policy. Now, that leads me to.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. In the policy, part A, are we to select a single policy, or is there one that you want us to
I
select?
say anything you want to do.
Because our board policy is like, it's a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, do you want us to focus on employment policy, standards of conduct,
Anything you
finance
want to
policy?
do. Again, anything you want to do. Pick a policy. I don't want to define one for you because everybody doesn't have the same. Remembering that everybody's policies are different. Everybody's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it has to be, you have to pick one.
Okay. And do our PLC members have to have involvement with that particular policy area or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Thank you.
Most of them won't. All right, Sheree.
So mine's more of a comment. So when I did the policy dig to find one for myself. It just opened my eyes that they don't even follow the policies.
Right.
Because
That's what I want you to
be-
learn. That's
because I'm look
yay. I love
I'm
working with
looking
smart people.
the policy that I'm picking is in reference to, let's see,
That that
um
that's
type of systems, reevaluating the numbers of teachers placed, and if they are beginner or alternative licensed teachers to ensure the policy is being upheld. So that means that they are supposed to, as a local, go in to do evaluations if we
right.
have too many beginner teachers in
Right.
these classrooms
Right.
and reevaluate and do a plan. So, like to me, I said, "Oh, we're not even following the policy. Of course, they're not going to follow the law." But this is the dig really allowed me to go in and see that they don't want us to be educated, like you said, because if you're not educated, you don't know to go look at these policies and see if they're
That
following
is
it.
correct. And see if they're being followed or not.
Hmm.
That is exactly right. That's the whole point. Cherie just clarified for us the whole point. What I want you to see is are people following these things or not? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And again, it's all fun and games till somebody gets their eye put out. Until all of a sudden the money don't is not there, and then they start looking for people to blame. And you can't say, well, everybody's done it this way forever. Or, and we've ignored this and not done that. As soon as it becomes an issue, then we fire the people that are in charge. What happened in Gaston with the EC person? They've been doing the same stuff forever, and then when somebody said, "Oh, the money's missing," but and her argument was, "This is the way we've always done things." Was it policy? No. Was it law? No. But this is the way we'd always done it. So that's what I mean. Nobody can give you permission to break the law. If you go along to get along, because it's the way we've always done it, knowing that we're breaking the law, as soon as it becomes a problem, then it's on you. Then it's on you. That's why you track these things. But you're exactly right, Cherie. You're tracking them to see, are we even doing what we're supposed to be doing? Or we're skipping it because we don't have the money. We're scraping that money off because we got behind during COVID. See, the
Or we
thing
don't have
about
enough
it is,
teachers, Dr. Lamb.
there
Or we
you
don't have
go.
enough teachers, so we're going to just stick them in the classrooms
That is
because
correct
we don't have nobody
we
else.
can't afford to we can't at the local level we can't afford to hire the teachers because that would be off the local budget. And remember, the county commissioners are only required to do capital buildings and grounds. They're not required to hire you those teachers by state law. And if you got behind on your money, see the thing about schools is it's not like you can get a second job and make extra money if you get behind. You only get paid for the kids you have. You never get paid more. If you're behind, you can't catch up. You can't generate more. You only generate income based on the number of kids you have and just that number. And once you get behind, once you kept schools open for 2 years when they should have been closed, or at least a year when they should have been closed, you get behind. So you start scraping up every loose dollar. You don't hire people. One of my former doctorals who graduated with me a few years back, she was there. They asked her, "Why aren't you doing these services?" She said, "That $1.7 million to hire those teachers never showed up. It was federal money because it was that the language in the language area. It didn't show up." I mean, that's what we're talking about. When we got behind, there's no way to get caught up from being behind. And so you just have to find money. You start this, we're supposed to do this for these beginning teachers, hire people to do evaluation. We just won't. And when you get caught, that's on you. Nancy, is your hand, why is it going up and down the screen here? I don't know how this thing works. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I had my hand
All
raised.
right, go.
Uh, piggybacking off of what Cherie was saying, and you were saying, and that's the thing, embedded in the federal statute for IDEA for the implementation of my programs, if a child, now according to the law, if a child has a need and we happen not to have a particular resource to meet that need in the district, the law says you better find a way to get that resource. And so the money, you know what I'm saying?
The money's got to come from state or local. That's exactly right.
That's right. So the financial resource or the human resource may not be there, but you better find a way. And I just find it crazy that that saying that you can tell a lot about a society by the way it treats its most vulnerable.
Exactly. The
Who are
least
our
of
most
us, as
vulnerable?
Jesus said.
Children and senior citizens, right? Our most vulnerable are children, babies, children. We have one of the highest mortality rates in the world
Developed
of a
world, we
of,
got
of
the
a
highest.
quote unquote developed world. And senior citizens are having to decide whether to eat or get their prescriptions filled.
Yep.
And when I lived and worked overseas, I often got questioned by a lot of the people from the European countries as well as in the Middle East. Why do you all not take care of your citizenry medically? Why do it just boggles their minds that we don't take care of our citizenry, in terms of medical care.
Yeah.
And again, same thing for education. You can get a doctorate in Germany a whole lot cheaper than you can get it here. And so we put our young people in debt with student loans. No other country does that. And so to me, it's greed.
Yeah.
And that you're talking earlier about the moral fiber of our country, which
Hmm.
is basically what you were talking about. The
We're
attack
we're we're
on
attacking
unreason.
that because
We're
then it
attacking
becomes harder to determine right and wrong.
right and wrong. And so the younger generation, that's who they're after. I don't know if anybody ever saw that movie a long time ago. My daughter was little. She got rest her soul. She put me up on that movie where the idiots were running the country.
Yeah.
Was it called Idiocracy?
Idiocracy. That was one of the
Oh,
Wilson
I
brothers.
recommended
I think
everybody watch
Terry
that.
Crews was in that movie.
Yeah, we're there now.
That, well, of course
And
we
if you
are.
and if you were intelligent, what happened to you? You got arrested and
Yep.
locked up. They
Yep.
just locked up Don Lemon the other day. So my point is we're there. We're there.
Yep. We are
And
there.
and I think what you said to Cherie is we've got to make intelligent decisions when we vote.
Yeah. And
But we did this to ourselves. We put him in
yeah, we
office.
did. And we're trying to convince people. I keep seeing it, this statement from one of the famous philosophers that when we get people to believe crazy stuff, then we can do pretty much whatever we want to. I'm talking about the attack on religion is civility, how we treat one another, the most vulnerable, as Nancy said, that's the attack on religion is where that's okay. It's okay to make fun of a handicapped person. It's okay to not do prenatal care, give no health care, especially to senior citizens and babies, all those things, SNAP benefits for women and children, that kind of thing. Now, don't feel bad for me. I'll make it. Okay, here's my Medicare card. Once you get to be 65, you'll go on Medicare. All right. Now, the only thing you get Medicare is Part A, hospital, if you have to go to the emergency room or whatever. You have to buy your insurance, your medical insurance, when you get to be 65. You have to pay for it. It's not free. People think, oh, you get free Medicare. No, you get hospitalization. You still have to pay, but that's only if you go to the emergency room. You get no medical care. Your medical, you don't get any with Medicare. None. You have to buy it. You have to buy it from a provider. I have Humana. Now, again, don't cry any tears for me. I'll be fine. Um, my premiums went up $115 when the big beautiful bill came into effect in January. I didn't say it went to 115. It went up 115 more for senior citizens. Their insurance, everybody that has insurance, 65 and above, their insurance went up $115 more a month. That's what we're talking about here. And if you were a religious person, you would know that that's not right. You would know that that's not right. Um, and so mine went up $115 more to where I'm now paying $300 a month as my base, and it goes up from there. I mean, people who are just living on their Social Security, it's pretty much half of their Social Security check to pay for their Medicare now. That's about the ratio. It's about half of their check. And so the base starts at $300 now and then goes up from there. That's what I'm talking about. It starts, I mean, it went up that much. The base was 185 a month. Now the base is 300 a month. Yeah. And so Nancy is in a situation where she's still working for the state. And so hers, I no longer work for the state. So I'm just having to pay for mine. And I don't have that state assistance to help with mine. So I said the basis starts at 300 and goes up from there according to how much you make. So at the end of the day, if I were on Social Security, half of my Social Security, I don't take mine. I'm well old enough. I don't take it. It would take half of my Social Security. So when we talk about, these people are getting Social Security, they're getting half now. Since January, they're getting half. That's what we're talking about. The least of us, as Jesus said, and that's the measure of a developed world. A first world country is how it treats its most vulnerable, the kids in school and seniors. So today's not about seniors, though I am one. I'm not going to, but I'm telling you, we're not looking after our most vulnerable, the kids, especially in the most vulnerable of those, the at risk, the Title One, the EC, the non-English first English as first language. Those are the kids. That's what we're talking about. That's the attack on religion. That religion says we ought to be doing better with those folks, and so that's why the attack on religion is no, um, no, that's not right. And so it's not like it's an attack on individual church. It's an attack on so that we can normalize throwing people down the street and shooting them. We can normalize not sending kids their SNAP benefits and their mothers. That's okay. We can normalize gutting their schools and not providing them the resources they need to get a decent education. That's what we're talking about here. This is not, this by extension, this is a politics class. Law and policy is politics. You got to understand that. That's what this class is. This is a politics class.
Dr. Land,
Yes.
um, I analyzed, and I already turned it in to Dr. Patterson, but no, I didn't. I didn't turn it in, but I've written it. Policy 4316 in Wake County Public Schools is a simple dress code policy on the surface. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was adopted in 2019. But I chose this because I looked at its revision in July, I think it was July of 2024. And what was happening was the Crown Act. It was in our state legislature. They haven't passed the Crown Act. And I know most of you are old enough to remember, even recently, seeing uh, newscasts about one teacher cut this little girl's, she had her hair in cornrows. She cut the little girl's hair, because it wasn't appropriate. And the parents think they've sued the school district, or the wrestling student whose coach cut off his dreadlocks. And so the Crown Act addresses the right for an individual to display the crown is your head, like I have an afro, to wear your hair, to express your pride in your culture. Basically, every person has a right to wear their hair they want to. I remember when the Hilton Corporation back in the day, it might have been the 70s or 80s, and a woman, she was she was on the management track, and they fired her because she showed up one day with either an afro or her hair cornrows. Long story short, the Wake County Public Schools Policy Committee, and I have the minutes from that policy meeting, and the lady, she's now in the state legislature, she spearheaded the move for Wake County to adapt. She started the ball rolling to adapt the language from the Crown Act into the policy 4316, the way it reads now. And it interlocks with policy 1710, which is the policy against harassment, bullying, and discrimination. So they intersect and cross-reference. And I thought about that as I was doing the assignment, looking at it again from the lens of a former special ed teacher and now special ed administrator, is that I'm wondering if people realize how important that I was proud of my district in adapting that language. But I wonder if people ever watch children and listen to children at the elementary level on the playground, especially you're talking about integrating schools, and children are now encountering a child with little beads in her hair. Let's imagine a first through fifth grade recess time playground. And I've seen kids do this. Your hair looks funny. Or they're laughing at the little boy because his parents sent him to school with a dashiki. And the child, because children are children and can't always articulate their emotions, comes back from recess or lunch like this. And they're sitting there in the classroom. Teachers say, okay, now we're going to start our reading lesson or our math lesson. And that child has harbored what has happened on that playground. Then they're already feeling isolated. So long story short, I was sharing with the policy person I met with at central office how a level 1 dress code can escalate to a much more serious
Oh, yeah.
behavior level when you have a child who is not feeling accepted in the macro culture of the school environment, because our schools do mirror the macro culture of our society. And we're asking little elementary kids to navigate, we're assuming, because we're middle, quote unquote, middle class, and we're viewing everything. We've gone to school and we've gotten our education degree. So we're filtering what we see and interpret through that lens. But you have to remember, until that child left their home to start kindergarten or preschool or first grade, their culture that they absorbed was in their home and in their neighborhood. And when they came to that little playground and the kids say, you look funny, your hair is different. And then now they're bald, their fist is balled up and they're sitting in class after recess. That's why I tell principals, get the backdrop story first before acting with the children and suspending or even just making a call and making them feel even worse than they already feel. And so the teacher says, well, you're not going to do the work. I'm sending you to the principal or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I was sharing with that policy person how something as simple as a level 1 dress code can. And so one of my recommendations when I did this assignment is that we have, and it's kind of going to go with my suspension thing. I came up with some other things with my suspension study, is that we have some training um, as little with the children, their families, because their families may not understand about the diverse hairstyles and representation, how culture is expressed and represented. And not only that, even board members, because I was told the history of my policy. One of the board members at that time, they're not on the board anymore. When this was being put in place, was surprised and shocked to know the history behind the hair expression and why it's important for them to understand this. He did not know, at least he claimed to not be aware that children were sometimes teased about their hair and whatnot. So the Crown Act, Wake County Public Schools did adapt it. They did not wait for our North Carolina Assembly to pass it. It has not been passed. But we adapted that language in the revision. So if you looked at our policy 4316, you'll see that it references you cannot discriminate against a child because of their hair. And I think this opened the doors to teacher training on self-awareness of all of us have hidden biases, all of us. And if you say you don't, you're lying. And so I think it's important that we have sensitivity training on hidden biases. That little snotty-nosed kid that walks through your classroom, or I've heard teachers say, well, their parents deal drugs, they're probably just going to follow in their steps. We need to, again, not judge our children on their appearance or their language that they bring in the classroom. That's my soapbox for today.
All right. All right. So this afternoon session, we're going to come back. It's got 2 minutes here. We're going to come back this afternoon. We're going to look at a series of laws and policies, how they interact and are put together. Um, Now, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I told you at the end, the last session is on the disciplinary data manual. We've already missed, we're getting behind here. So I'm going to cover the disciplinary data manual right after lunch today because I want to show you how law and policy interacts and how federal oversight comes in with OCR. All those things are in that manual. I teach that manual a lot because it shows how law and policy works together. Law being from the General Assembly, policy being from the state school board, and how those intersect and how they go together, and then how DPI then writes a manual on how we're to act in schools to follow the law and policy. And there's several other intersecting things that come into that. So I'm going to cover that. So we're going to be back on at 1:30. We'll do one last session from 1:30, another 90-minute session from 1:30 to 3, and we'll be done at 3 today. All right. So be back on with me. It's now 12 o'clock. Be back on with me. I'll process and upload this video in the break. Be back on with me at 1:30 if your power's still on. And I'm looking out the window here. Pretty rough in this part of the world. So
Wow.
at 1:30, we'll go from 1:30 to 3. All right.
Okay, Dr. Lamb, before we take the quick break, so tomorrow for a presentation, we could do like I could do the flow chart or
You
talk
can
about
do
the
what
crisis
you're gonna do you can do any or all of those tomorrow. You got 30 minutes.
because I've done those already for Dr. Patterson.
Again, if you've already done them, that's why I said you can do any or all. Nancy's in the
Okay,
other class and she's joining us. For us, you got 5 different things on the folks that we got. You
okay,
got 5 different things to present tomorrow, any or all of them. You got 30
okay,
minutes.
okay. And will you list those in an email since I'm not
I
in your
already did.
class?
I sent
You
it to
sent
you
the
last
email?
night.
Oh, okay. Because you weren't specific. You just said if you're
No,
ready
I
to
sent it. I
present.
sent you an email with the 5 in it last night. Sent it.
Oh, okay. I must have skipped it. Okay, I'll
Yep,
look at
I've
it.
already sent that,
Okay.
and I'll post it again in our chat.
Thank you.
All right.
If the power goes out, you've got all of our phone numbers, right? You'll text us.
Yep, I'll
Okay.
text.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, it's not snowing in Cary. I'm looking out the window. We have no
Yeah, it is.
snow.
It is here. But
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
let you know if we get out.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. I'll see you at 1:30. All right. Bye bye.